My heart stopped the moment I heard those words. She's just draining us dry. I mean, how long do we have to keep feeding a liability? Stephanie's voice, sharp as a blade, cut through the quiet of the dining room. I stood frozen behind the door, the tray of coffee cups trembling in my hands. The bitter scent of roasted beans mixed with the sting of betrayal. Was I really just a burden to her, after everything I'd done for this family? Let me take you back to that evening. I'm Barbara Klein, 73, a retired bank manager who thought family was my anchor. I'd poured my savings, $350,000 plus my retirement account, into keeping this household afloat. Mortgage payments, groceries, even the kids' school fees, I covered them all. My son, Michael, and his wife, Stephanie, welcomed me into their home 3 years ago after my husband passed. I thought we were a team. But that night, as the chandelier's dim glow cast shadows across the oak table, I overheard Stephanie's true feelings. Her words weren't just cruel, they were a calculated strike. What would you do if the people you sacrificed for turned on you? This is my story of betrayal, revenge, and reclaiming my worth. I risked everything to protect my family, but I might lose them in the process. Stick with me to see how I turn the tables. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. If this story's grabbing you, hit that like button to let us know. Tell us where you're tuning in from. The dining room felt colder now, the air heavy with the weight of her words. I set the tray down, the clink of porcelain echoing in my ears. My fingers brushed the worn edge of the table, a piece I'd paid to refinish last year. Every sacrifice flashed before me, late nights balancing their budget, skipping my own vacations to fund their dreams. I remembered the day I moved in, Michael's grateful hug, Stephanie's polite smile. Was it all a lie? You're overreacting, I told myself, my pulse racing. But then I heard her again, whispering to Michael, "It's time we get her to sign over that retirement account. It'll be less messy later." My breath caught. She wasn't just ungrateful. She was plotting. My money, my security, reduced to a transaction. I clutched my chest, the ache spreading like wildfire. How could she? I slipped back to my room, the hallway's hardwood creaking under my steps. The faint hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. I sat on my bed, staring at the photo of my late husband, George, on the nightstand. "What do I do now, George?" I whispered. His smile seemed to urge me on. I wasn't just a liability, I was Barbara Klein, and I'd built a life from nothing once before. I could do it again. Was I naive to think love could buy loyalty? I'd given everything to this family, but as I sat alone in my room that night, Stephanie's words echoed like a cruel refrain. A liability. The moonlight spilled through my window, casting a pale glow on the quilt my mother made decades ago. Its worn stitches smelled faintly of lavender, a reminder of simpler times. I traced the fabric, my fingers trembling, and wondered where I went wrong. Let me take you back to understand why I poured my life into Michael and Stephanie's world. I'm Barbara Klein, a 73-year-old widow who once managed a bustling bank branch. Numbers were my strength, balancing ledgers, securing futures. When George, my husband, passed 5 years ago, I sold our house and moved in with my son. It felt right. Michael was struggling. His tech startup was bleeding money, and Stephanie's part-time job barely covered their kids' expenses. I saw their stress, the way Michael's shoulders slumped at dinner, the way Stephanie's eyes darted to unpaid bills. I couldn't just watch. So I stepped in. My savings, $350,000, built from years of careful planning, became their lifeline. I paid the mortgage on their 3-bedroom home, the one with the creaky porch swing and peeling paint. I covered groceries, school fees, even the car repairs when their sedan broke down. The leather of my old checkbook felt heavy each time I wrote a check, the ink smudging under my tired fingers. I didn't mind. This was family. I remembered my own mother, working double shifts to keep us fed after Dad left. "Family sticks together," she'd say, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. That lesson stuck with me. Years ago, when Michael was a boy, I'd stay up late balancing our budget, my desk lamp casting a warm circle over stacks of bills. I'd promised him a better life, one where he wouldn't feel the weight of scarcity. When he married Stephanie, I saw her ambition, her charm. She'd hug me at holidays, her perfume sharp and floral, promising we'd always be close. I believed her. I paid for their wedding, the venue draped in white roses, the band's music floating into the night. I thought I was building a legacy of love. But there were cracks I ignored. Stephanie's smiles grew colder over time. Last Christmas, when I handed her a check for the kids' summer camp, she barely looked up from her phone. "Thanks, Barbara," she muttered, her voice flat. I brushed it off, telling myself she was stressed. But now, replaying that moment, I saw the truth. She took me for granted. Worse, she resented me. I sat at my desk, the wood cool against my palms, and opened my laptop. My retirement account balance glowed on the screen, my last piece of security. Stephanie's whisper about signing it over replayed in my mind, each word a needle in my chest. "Why did I give so much?" I whispered to myself, my voice breaking in the quiet room. The hum of the house felt oppressive, the distant clatter of dishes from the kitchen, a reminder of the life I'd funded. I thought of George again, his steady hand on mine when we planned our retirement. "You're too generous, Barb," he'd teased, his laugh warm. If he were here, what would he say? I closed my eyes, picturing his face, and felt a flicker of resolve. I'd sacrificed for love, but I wasn't a fool. "How do you face someone who's been plotting against you behind your back?" Stephanie's words, draining us dry, burned in my mind like a brand. I stood in the kitchen the next morning, the bitter smell of coffee grounds thick in the air, my hands gripping the counter's cold granite. Her whisper about my retirement account wasn't just a jab, it was a plan. I wasn't just a burden to her, I was a prize to be claimed. My heart pounded, each beat a drum of anger and hurt. I needed answers, and I wasn't waiting any longer. The house was quiet, save for the faint tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. I'd spent the night replaying every moment with Stephanie, searching for clues I'd missed. Her insistence last month that I simplify my finances, her too sweet smile when she suggested a family lawyer. It all clicked now. She wasn't protecting me, she was positioning herself. I remembered a moment years ago when Michael first brought her home. She'd sat at our dining table, her laughter bright, promising to care for him. "We're family now, Barbara," she'd said, her hand warm on mine. I'd believed her, picturing a future of shared holidays and laughter. How had that warmth turned so cold? I found her in the living room that afternoon, scrolling on her phone, her nails tapping the screen. The sunlight slanted through the blinds, casting sharp shadows across her face. "Stephanie," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. She looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly, like she sensed a shift. "We need to talk." She set her phone down, her movements slow, deliberate. "Sure, Barbara, what's up?" Her tone was light, but I caught the edge like a blade hidden in silk. I took a breath, the air heavy with the scent of her floral perfume. "I heard you last night," I said, my words cutting through the silence. "You called me a liability, said I'm draining you dry." Her face froze, her lips parting slightly. For a moment the room was still, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound. Then she laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Oh, Barbara, you must have misheard. I'd never say that." But her eyes betrayed her, cold, calculating, darting to the side. "Don't lie to me," I snapped, my voice rising. My hands clenched, nails biting into my palms. "You want my retirement account. You told Michael to get me to sign it over." Her smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. She stood, stepping closer, her voice low. "You're twisting things, Barbara. We're just trying to make things easier for you. You're not getting any younger." Each word was a jab, laced with condescension. I felt my chest tighten, the weight of her manipulation suffocating. I stepped back, the floorboards creaking under my weight. "Easier for me or for you?" I shot back. My mind flashed to George, his voice steady as he taught me to trust my instincts. "Don't let anyone push you around, Barb," he'd said, his hand firm on my shoulder during a tough day at the bank. I'd faced down pushy clients and shady deals before. Stephanie was no different. "I've paid for this house, the kids' school, your car, and this is how you repay me?" My voice trembled. but I stood taller, fueled by years of sacrifice. She crossed her arms, her lips curling into a smirk. "You chose to help, Barbara. Nobody forced you." The audacity of her words hit like a slap. I wanted to scream, to shake her, but I held my ground. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in, the faint buzz of a fly trapped against the window amplifying my rage. "You're right," I said, my voice low, dangerous, "and I can choose to stop." Her eyes widened just for a second before she masked it with a shrug. "Do what you want," she said, turning away, but I saw the crack in her armor, the way her fingers twitched, the way her breath hitched. She hadn't expected me to fight back. I turned and walked out, the click of my heels echoing like a warning shot. I wasn't just angry, I was done being her pawn. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. Could I outsmart someone who'd played me for years? Stephanie's smirk lingered in my mind, her words, "Do what you want." A dare I couldn't ignore. I sat in my room, the faint scent of old books and polished wood grounding me. The desk lamp cast a soft glow, its warmth a stark contrast to the cold resolve growing inside. I wasn't just Barbara, the generous mother-in-law, anymore. I was a woman who'd built a life from grit and numbers, and I wasn't about to let Stephanie steal it. My fingers tapped the armrest, the rhythm matching my racing thoughts. It was time to take control. After our confrontation, the house felt like a chessboard, every move calculated. I noticed how Stephanie avoided my gaze at breakfast, her spoon clinking too loudly against her bowl. Michael, oblivious, scrolled through his phone, unaware of the war brewing. I needed a plan, one that would protect my future without shattering the family. But where to start? I remembered George's advice years ago when a shady client tried to scam the bank. "Trust your gut, Barb," he'd said, his voice steady over a crackling phone line. "But back it up with proof." I needed evidence and a way to secure my assets before Stephanie could push further. I met my old friend Ellen at a quiet cafe downtown, the kind with mismatched chairs and the hum of an espresso machine. Ellen, a retired lawyer with sharp eyes and sharper wit, had known me since my banking days. The air smelled of cinnamon and roasted beans, and the clatter of cups felt like a shield from the chaos at home. I slid into the booth, my hands clutching a manila folder with bank statements. "Ellen," I said, my voice low, "I need your help." She leaned forward, her silver bracelets jingling softly. "Spill it, Barbara. What's got you so rattled?" I told her everything. Stephanie's cruel words, her push for my retirement account, the way she'd manipulated Michael. My voice shook as I recounted the dining room betrayal, the memory of Stephanie's cold laugh like a splinter in my mind. Ellen listened, her pen tapping the table, her face unreadable. "She called me a liability," I said, my throat tight. "She wants my money, Ellen. I can't let her win." Ellen's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. "You're not a liability, Barbara. You're a fortress. Let's make sure she knows it." We spent hours plotting. Ellen suggested I transfer my savings and retirement account to a new private account, one Stephanie couldn't touch. "Lock it down," she said, her words clipped, precise. "And document everything you've paid for. Show Michael the truth." I nodded, the weight of her advice settling like a lifeline. The cafe's dim lights flickered, casting shadows on the worn tabletop, and I felt a spark of hope. I'd secure my money first, then confront Michael with the numbers, every cent I'd spent on their life. Back home, I worked late, the glow of my laptop screen stinging my eyes. The house was silent, save for the distant creak of pipes. I logged into my bank, my fingers trembling as I initiated the transfer. $350,000, my safety net, moved to a new account with a click. My retirement account followed, locked behind new passwords. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. But doubt crept in. Would Michael believe me? Or would Stephanie twist the truth again? I pushed the thought away, the memory of George's steady hand on mine giving me strength. "You've got this, Barb," he'd say. I could almost hear him now. Could I make them see the truth without breaking us apart? My plan was in motion, my savings and retirement account now locked away, safe from Stephanie's grasp. But the real challenge lay ahead, facing my son, Michael, with the evidence of my sacrifices and her betrayal. The dining room, where this all began, felt like a battlefield now. The chandelier's light glinted off the polished table, casting jagged reflections, and the air carried the faint tang of lemon polish sharp against my nerves. I clutched my folder of bank statements, the paper crinkling under my fingers. This was it, my moment to reclaim my voice. I called a family meeting that evening. Michael sat across from me, his brow furrowed, unaware of the storm about to break. Stephanie lounged beside him, her posture casual, but I caught the flicker of unease in her eyes. The kids were upstairs, their laughter a distant echo, leaving just the three of us. The clock ticked loudly, each second amplifying the tension. "Michael," I started, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "I need to show you something." I slid the folder across the table, its weight a testament to years of sacrifice. He opened it, his eyes scanning the highlighted lines. Mortgage payments, utility bills, school fees, all paid from my savings. $350,000, I said, my words cutting through the silence. "That's what I've put into this house, your life, your family." Michael's face paled, his fingers pausing on the page. Stephanie shifted, her chair creaking, her lips parting to speak, but I wasn't done. "And you," I turned to her, my gaze unflinching, "called me a liability, said I was draining you dry." Her mouth tightened, but I pressed on. "You wanted my retirement account, didn't you? To make things easier for you." Stephanie laughed, a brittle sound that echoed in the room. "Barbara, you're blowing this out of proportion. I was just venting." Her voice was smooth, but her hands betrayed her, twisting a napkin into knots. Michael looked at her, then back at me, confusion clouding his eyes. I remembered a moment years ago when he was a teenager, upset over a bad grade. "You always fix things, Mom," he'd said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I'd promised to always have his back. Now, I needed him to have mine. "Venting?" I said, my voice rising. "You told Michael to get me to sign over my money. I heard you." I pulled out a printed email from Ellen, detailing the legal steps I'd taken to secure my accounts. "It's protected now. You'll never touch it." Stephanie's face flushed, her calm facade cracking. "You're twisting my words," she snapped, standing so fast her chair scraped the floor. The sharp sound cut through the air, matching the fire in my chest. "Michael, tell her she's wrong," she urged, her voice desperate. Michael's eyes darted between us, his hands gripping the folder. "Steph, is this true?" he asked, his voice low, strained. She froze, her breath hitching. For a moment the room was silent, the hum of the refrigerator a faint backdrop to her silence. Then she faltered. I thought it'd help us plan better," she stammered. But the lie hung heavy, exposed by the numbers in Michael's hands. He looked at me, his eyes wide with shock. "Mom, I didn't know," he whispered. "I thought you wanted to help." "I did," I said, my throat tight. "But I'm not a bank, Michael, and I'm not a liability." The words felt like a release, years of unspoken hurt spilling out. The room seemed brighter now, the chandelier's light no longer harsh but triumphant. Stephanie sank back into her chair, her face pale, her power unraveling. I stood tall, my heart pounding but steady, the weight of my sacrifices finally acknowledged. If you're cheering for my victory, smash that like button. What do you think about this moment of justice? Let us know in the comments. What does it mean to truly know your own strength? After exposing Stephanie's betrayal, I felt lighter, like a weight had lifted from my chest. But the victory was bittersweet. The dining room confrontation had left Michael shaken, and our home felt like a house of cards, fragile and unsteady. I sat by my bedroom window, the morning sun filtering through the lace curtains, its warmth brushing my skin like a gentle promise. The faint chirping of birds outside mingled with the scent of blooming jasmine from the garden, grounding me in this moment of quiet. I'd fought for my place, but now I needed to find myself again. The days after the meeting were tense. Stephanie kept her distance, her usual chatter replaced by clipped responses. Michael, though, sought me out. One evening he knocked on my door, his silhouette framed by the hallway's dim light. "Mom," he said, his voice soft, hesitant. "Can we talk?" I nodded, my heart aching at the vulnerability in his eyes. We sat on the couch, the leather cool against my hands, the faint creak of the springs filling the silence. "I'm sorry," he said, his words heavy. "I didn't see what Stephanie was doing. I should have known." His apology stirred a memory. Years ago, when Michael was 10, he'd broken a neighbor's window playing baseball. He'd stood in our kitchen, eyes red, confessing through tears. "I'll fix it, Mom," he'd promised, his small hands clutching mine. I'd taught him then that honesty rebuilds trust. Now, as he sat before me, that same boy was trying to mend what was broken. "I don't blame you," I said, my voice steady but warm. "But I need you to see me, Michael. Not just as Mom, but as Barbara, who gave everything for you." He nodded, his fingers tracing the couch's stitching. "I see you now," he whispered. The words felt like a bridge, fragile but real, reconnecting us. I realized then that my fight wasn't just about money. It was about being seen, valued. The sunlight shifted, casting golden patterns on the floor, and I felt a spark of something new, pride in my own resilience. I met Ellen again at the cafe, the familiar hum of the espresso machine a comforting backdrop. Over steaming mugs, I thanked her, my voice thick with gratitude. "You gave me the push I needed," I said, the ceramic warm against my palms. She smiled, her eyes crinkling. "You had it in you all along, Barbara. You just needed a reminder." Her words sank deep like roots finding soil. I wasn't just a mother-in-law or a bank account. I was a woman who'd faced down betrayal and stood taller. That night, alone in my room, I looked at George's photo on the nightstand. His smile seemed brighter, as if he were cheering me on. I'd spent years giving, thinking it was my duty, but now I saw the truth. My strength wasn't in what I gave away, but in what I held on to, my dignity, my resolve. The soft hum of the house, the distant rustle of leaves outside felt like a lullaby, soothing the ache of the past weeks. I was ready to move forward, not as a victim, but as a woman reclaimed. What lesson did you take away from my journey? Share it in the comments. If this story inspired you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Moving out wasn't easy. After the confrontation, Michael and I talked for hours, his apologies raw and genuine. "I want you to stay, Mom," he'd said, his voice cracking as we sat in the living room, the familiar scent of cedar from the furniture grounding me. But I knew staying would mean living in Stephanie's shadow. I remembered a moment with George years ago, as we walked through a park, the leaves crunching under our feet. "You're strongest when you choose yourself, Barb," he'd said, his hand warm in mine. That memory guided me now. I chose myself. I met Ellen one last time at our cafe, the air rich with the aroma of fresh pastries. "You're glowing, Barbara," she said, her smile wide as she sipped her latte. "This place suits you." I laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. "It's more than the place," I said, my fingers tracing the rim of my cup. "It's knowing I'm enough." The words felt like a vow, sealing my journey from sacrifice to self-worth. My new home was a cozy apartment, its walls adorned with photos of Michael's kids and George's old sketches. The morning light spilled through wide windows, painting the room in hues of gold. I'd kept my savings secure, my retirement account untouchable, and started volunteering at a local financial literacy program. Teaching others to protect their futures felt like reclaiming mine. Each step, signing the lease, unpacking my mother's quilt, planting herbs on my balcony, felt like a declaration. I was Barbara Klein, not a liability, but a force. Stephanie faded into the background. Michael told me she'd apologized, her words stiff, forced. I didn't need her remorse. I'd learned the truth behind her cruelty. Those who call you a burden often fear their own fragility. My heart, once heavy with hurt, now felt steady, anchored by the strength I'd rediscovered. I thought of my mother, her tired hands sewing that quilt, teaching me resilience. "Family is love, but love starts with you," she'd said. I understood now. As I stood on my balcony, the sunset casting a warm glow over the community's gardens, I felt at peace. I'd given so much, but I'd gained more, myself. Be careful who you call a burden because they might just hold the key to your survival.